yearned for their homeland for 2,000 years?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I thank the Father of the House for his important question. Settler violence and expansion in the West Bank is appalling and completely unacceptable. Alongside our allies, we have sanctioned individuals responsible for inciting this extremist action, but a two-state solution is the only way to bring peace that the Israelis and the Palestinians deserve, and this is only achievable if the hostages are released, aid surged into Gaza and the ceasefire is restored, and we'll do everything we can to make that happen.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In Scotland, over 10,000 children are stuck in temporary accommodation, including many in my constituency of Stirling and Strathallan. Too many families facing soaring rents, long waiting lists and dwindling options. It's just one of so many policy failings that we're all losing count and losing patience as public confidence in the SNP ability to govern collapses. What advice would she have for the Scottish SNP government as they continue to preside over a chronic failure to invest in the social and affordable housing Scotland so desperately needs?
Well, my honourable friend is right, Mr Speaker. Homeless levels are far too high, which has a devastating impact on those affected. Under the SNP, 10,000 children in Scotland shamefully have no fixed home to call their own, a record high. Our decisions have given Scotland a record settlement and the largest since devolution. We saw in Hamilton, Mr Speaker, how Scots are fed up with the SNP's excuses. They've been in power for nearly 2 decades and have nowhere left to hide from their failure.
Anne Davies.
Diolch, Mr Llefarydd. Welsh farmers are taking hit after hit, from Tory trade deals to Labour taxes, and now on top of that, blue tongue restrictions affecting Wales and England will hamper cross-border trade. Over 550 farms on the border and key livestock markets rely on summer trading. Once in a year, opportunities like the Royal Welsh Show are crucial, and the disruption will be devastating. So will the Deputy Prime Minister commit to working with Welsh Government on a scheme to compensate for the losses?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, I gently say to the honourable member, you don't deliver for Wales by voting against an extra £1.6 billion for public services like I did at the Senate. We will be making sure that we support Wales and support Welsh farmers, and we'll continue to do that as a UK government.
Andrew Pett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In the spending review last week, the government backed Peterborough with support for our new pool and sports quarter in the city. This commitment has the power to turn years of campaigning into a reality. But that's not all. The government has also recently approved the business case for our new station and given us new police. So can I ask the Deputy Prime Minister, does she agree that this is just the start and that places like Peterborough that were forgotten for too long by the party opposite are now top of this Labour government's agenda?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for his comments, and flagged by the two ladies that have made sure that those things happen. The Chancellor's guaranteed funding to accelerate projects like Peterborough's new sports quarter, including, Mr Speaker, a new Olympic-sized swimming pool. And I can also confirm today that, subject to the business case approval, we will provide nearly £48 million of funding for a new city centre quarter and a refurbished Eastern Station building.
Paul Holmes.
Recently, a small family business in my constituency was burgled by a prolific offender who was serving an 8-month suspended sentence. The man was caught, arrested, charged and appeared at court, where he was given another 8-month suspended sentence and released. The business was offered £200 in compensation. Does the Deputy Prime Minister think that's justice served, or is this government now soft on crime and soft on the causes of crime?
Well, first of all, Mr Speaker, I'm really sorry to hear about that. Hard-working business people that spend a lot of their time building up a business should expect the full force of the law to protect their property and protect their interests. And can I also, while I've got the opportunity, congratulate the honourable member for running Hamble Valley's very first pub competition this year. I hope I'm going to get an invite. But he's absolutely right, Mr Speaker, to say that we've got to have increased police numbers and making sure they're responsive to people's concerns. We're doing that. His government let them down.
Joe Powell.
Mr Speaker, Saturday marked 8 years since 72 people lost their lives in the Grenfell Tower fire. 8 years without justice, but finally the prospect of some systemic change following the public inquiry. So I welcome the government's commitment to barring all the cited companies from accessing public contracts and its full support to the police investigation to deliver real accountability. Can the Deputy Prime Minister also reassure our community that alongside the Hillsborough law, the government will consider some independent oversight so that victims from the Post Office to Hillsborough to Grenfell know inquiry recommendations will actually lead to real change?
Deputy Prime Minister.
I thank my honourable friend. The Grenfell fire was a national tragedy, and we must never forget the 72 lives that were lost, and it was an honour to pay my respects at the 8th anniversary at the weekend. We do remain fully committed to introducing the Hillsborough law, including a legal duty of candour for public services and criminal sanctions for those who refuse to comply. I know my honourable friend speaks with passion and authority on this as I speak to the Grenfell community. I know this is something that they really want to see happen as quickly as possible, and we're exploring reforms to inquiries to get to the truth more quickly and deliver the meaningful change that these victims deserve.
Peter Forge.
Thank you. Bishop Challoner School has been helping to educate Bromley pupils for nearly 75 years. But it will close its doors in July due to Labour's decision to impose VAT on independent schools. Given the Deputy Prime Minister's well-publicised views on independent schools, does she welcome this closure, or would she like to apologise to the parents, pupils and staff?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I've said for a long time that the taxpayers of this country shouldn't be subsidising tax breaks for private schools. I welcome all schools that give children a great education, but I'm also determined to ensure we've got qualified teachers in every classroom for every child, something their government failed to do.
Alan Thompson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As a trained physics teacher and a former engineering lecturer, can I ask the Deputy Prime Minister what this government is doing to help people improve their maths skills after they have left school? I came across an awful case the other day. A 61-year-old man who believed he'd counted up 7 billion of government spending when there was really only 27 million. What can we do for people like the leader of Reform UK, who evidently can't add up?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, my honourable friend highlights an important fact. Reform sums simply don't add up. He'll be pleased to know that we're investing £136 million for skills boot camps, and I will be sure to send the details to the honourable member for Clapton.
That completes Deputy Prime Minister's questions. We'll let the front bench change over. Now come to the statement. Secretary of State for Transport, Heidi Alexander.
Mr Speaker, with permission, I'd like to make a statement on HS2. As a London councillor over 15 years ago, I remember hearing the then Labour government's bold plans for high-speed rail to link our major cities to address the capacity needs of the future, and in the words of the then Prime Minister Gordon Brown, to join the high-speed revolution sweeping the world. It was a vision of a confident nation, a clear signal our great towns and cities in the Midlands and the North, with potential that had been untapped at best and ignored at worst, could be places of opportunity and aspiration again. That was the promise of HS2. But after a decade and a half of Tory timelines planned then delayed, routes drawn up then cancelled, budgets calculated then blown, promises made then broken, we inherited a project that had lost the trust of the public, that created an image of a Britain woefully unable to deliver big infrastructure projects, and that axed swathes of the country it was originally meant to serve. Phase 1 could end up becoming one of the most expensive railway lines in the world, with projected costs soaring by £37 billion under previous Conservative governments, and £2 billion of taxpayers' money sunk into Phase 2 work before it was cancelled by the previous government. There was also clear evidence of poor management. Despite the 2020 Okavi review advising that government halt construction contracts pending improvements in price and simpler engineering, they pressed ahead regardless. It has been no less than a litany of failure, and today I'm drawing a line in the sand, calling time on years of mismanagement, flawed reporting and ineffective oversight. It means this government will get the job done between Birmingham and London. We won't reinstate cancelled sections we can't afford, but we will do the hard but necessary work to rebuild public trust, and we've not wasted any time. Since July, we have appointed new leadership of HS2 Limited to turn this project around. We've made clear to the new Chief Executive, Mark Wilde, that the priority is building the rest of the railway safely at the lowest reasonable cost, even if this takes longer. We've started the year-long task of fundamentally resetting the project, including commissioning infrastructure expert James Stewart to lead a review into governance and oversight. As part of that reset, we have reduced financial delegations to HS2 Limited, placing a lid on spiralling costs until the reset is complete and we regain confidence. And we've supported Mark Wilde's review of the size and cost of HS2 as an organisation. But today we're going further. Mr Speaker, I can confirm we've published the landmark James Stewart review and the department's response. The review, commissioned in October of last year by my predecessor, was a tough independent look at how the Department for Transport and Government delivers major projects. The Government not only welcomes the review, but we have accepted all the recommendations. My department is already delivering on these, specifically across 5 key areas. First, the lack of oversight and scrutiny. Quite simply, there have been too many dark corners for failure to hide in. The Ministerial Task Force, set up to provide oversight of HS2, had inconsistent attendance from key ministers, including the then Transport Secretary and the then Chief Secretary to the Treasury. The Government has re-established the task force with full senior attendance as per the review's recommendations. A new performance programme and shareholder boards will offer much needed oversight and accountability. Secondly, the report highlights HS2 could cost the taxpayer millions more than planned. We'll stop this spiralling any further by delivering all the recommendations on cost control. That starts with HS2 fundamentally changing their approach to estimating costs. It includes certainty over funding, which the spending review has given. And it also means HS2 working with suppliers so their contracts incentivise saving costs for taxpayers. As far as I'm concerned, suppliers should make a better return the more taxpayer money they save. Thirdly, the review identified a deficit in capability and skills, with a fundamental lack of trust between my department and HS2 Limited. I am clear both capability and cultural issues within HS2 must be addressed. The new Chief Executive is already strengthening the organisation, including filling critical gaps in areas such as commercial expertise. And he will be backed by Mike Brown, announced today as the new chair. This is a new era of leadership the project desperately needs, with Mike bringing significant experience as a former TfL commissioner. Mark and Mike were part of the team with me that turned Crossrail into the Elizabeth line. We've done it before and we'll do it again. Fourthly, Euston Station. Between 2019 and 2023, HS2 Limited provided initial designs for Euston Station, coming in almost £2 billion over budget. When asked for a more affordable option, they offered one costing £400 million more than the first attempt. The word affordable was clearly not part of the HS2 lexicon. The combined cost for these two failed designs, which has now been written off, was more than £250 million. What's more, the previous government announced a Euston ministerial task force. Unbelievably, the task force never met. Mr. Speaker, this government recognises Euston's huge potential, and we've already committed funding to start the tunnelling from Old Oak Common to Euston, and we'll set out more details in our 10-year infrastructure strategy. And finally, we will use James Stewart's findings to transform infrastructure delivery across government. Implementing real change in how we deliver infrastructure is not just for the Department for Transport. This government is committed to implementing these recommendations and adopting a new approach to delivering infrastructure, as will be set out in our upcoming 10-year infrastructure strategy. In that spirit, the Prime Minister has also asked the Cabinet Secretary to consider the implications for the civil service and wider public sector of the issues raised in the report, including whether further action or investigation is warranted. Mr. Speaker, we're wasting no time in delivering on this review, and I will update Parliament on our progress through my 6 monthly reports, even if the information is uncomfortable. Because for a government that last week pledged billions in capital investment for new major projects, that believes in the power of transport infrastructure to improve lives and deliver on our plan for change, this level of failure cannot stand. We will learn the lessons of the past 15 years and restore our reputation of delivering world-class infrastructure projects. Mr. Speaker, I've spoken about our inheritance. I've spoken about James Stewart's review. Let me finally turn to Mark Wilde's initial assessment, which lays bare the shocking mismanagement of the project under previous governments. I will place a copy of his interim findings in the library. He stated in no uncertain terms, the overall project with respect to cost, schedule and scope is unsustainable. Based on his advice, I see no route by which trains can be running by 2033 as planned. He reveals costs will continue to increase if not taken in hand, further outstripping the budget set by the previous government. And he cannot be certain that all cost pressures have yet been identified. Mr. Speaker, it gives me no pleasure to deliver news like this. Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money has been wasted by constant scope changes, ineffective contracts and bad management. There are also allegations that parts of the supply chain have been defrauding taxpayers, and I have been clear these need to be investigated rapidly and rigorously. If fraud is proven, the consequences will be felt by all involved. Mr. Speaker, I have to be honest, it's an appalling mess, but it's one we will sort out. We need to set targets which we can confidently deliver, that the public can trust, and that will take time. But rest assured, where there are inefficiencies, we will root them out. Where further ministerial interventions are needed, I will make them without fear or favour. HS2 will finally start delivering on our watch. Mr. Speaker, years of mismanagement and neglect have turned HS2 into a shadow of that vision put forward 15 years ago. But this government was elected on a mandate to restore trust to our politics. That's why we won't shirk away from this challenge and why today we turn the page on infrastructure failures. I can think of no better mission than delivering new economic opportunities, new homes and commercial regeneration of an upskilled supply chain, all of which HS2 can still unlock. But no one should underestimate the scale of the reset required. Passengers and taxpayers deserve new railways the country can be proud of. The work to get HS2 back on track is firmly underway under this government, and I commend this statement to the House.
State Gareth Bacon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Secretary of State for her statement today and for updating the House on the initial findings of the HS2 reviews, and I thank her as well for advance notice and copy of it. On the substance of the Secretary of State's statement, I believe there is broad consensus in this House today on the central point, which is that mistakes were made in the delivery of HS2. As the Secretary of State has noted, costs more than doubled, the project has been repeatedly delayed, and the pandemic completely changed travel patterns, undercutting the assumptions that guided the original plans and caused construction costs to rise sharply across the world, in some cases by up to 40%, as a result of the supply chain shortages as the world emerged from the crisis. It has long been apparent that HS2 was not going according to plan. Mr. Speaker, in my first 2 years as a member of this House, I sat on the Public Accounts Committee, then chaired by the Honourable Lady, the member for Hackney South and Shoreditch. In the summer of 2021, we published a report on HS2 raising serious concerns in a number of areas with recommendations for how to improve the project. In 2023, the previous government conceded that HS2 was not going to plan and made fundamental changes to it, and the result of that was the cancellation of the northern leg of HS2 and the creation of the Network North plan. Under that plan, £36 billion was to be diverted from the northern leg of HS2 to a multitude of transport projects that would benefit more people in more places more quickly than the then government believed the delivery of HS2 could. But we also recognise that the path that we took to reach that point was not perfect, far from it. And I will not today pretend that the Network North plan was not a product of mistakes we made in the handling of HS2, because it clearly was. As a country, we must learn from those mistakes and we must not repeat them. It is on that note, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I would like to express my gratitude to Mark Wilde, the Chief Executive Officer of HS2, for his continued efforts in supporting the delivery of the project. Recognising his leadership in rescuing the Crossrail project in London, it was the Noble Lord Harper, then the Secretary of State for Transport, who appointed him to lead HS2 in May 2024. We are all encouraged to see him playing a leading role in overseeing the correction and completion of the project, because his experience will be invaluable in helping to get it back on track. I would also like to welcome the appointment of Mike Brown as the new chairman of HS2 Limited. Like the Secretary of State, I know him from my years in London politics when he was Commissioner of Transport for London. He is a very capable man, and I wish him well in his new role. The Secretary of State has informed the House of her intention to accept 89 recommendations from the independent review into HS2. I've not yet seen a copy of this report, which I believe is being released today. While we will need to study these proposals carefully before confirming our support for them, I can assure her that if they offer better value for taxpayers, we will back them. Finally, the Secretary of State has raised very serious concerns that taxpayers may have been defrauded by subcontractors. I would like to assure her that if that proves to be the case, I will share her anger and will support whatever action is necessary to get to the bottom of these allegations. I would request that she keeps the House informed as HS2 and HMRC's investigations progress. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I would like to press the Secretary of State on a number of matters. In recent weeks, several projects have been announced by the government that are either funded by Network North or align with its commitments. However, we have yet to see a clear government commitment to either fully support the Network North plan or to scale it back. So can the Secretary of State now provide a definitive update on which elements will proceed and which will be abandoned? It has been reported that officials are considering a plan backed by the Mayor of Greater Manchester to build, and I quote, an HS2 light track between Birmingham and Crewe. Will she confirm if these reports are true? I would like to conclude by turning to the planning system more generally. The whole House will recall that HS2 grappled with legal challenges, High Court proceedings and judicial reviews, all of which added delay and cost. What assessment has the Secretary of State made of the extent to which legal challenges and judicial reviews delayed the delivery of HS2? How can future infrastructure projects be protected from excessive or politically motivated litigation? And finally, does the Secretary of State believe that sufficient action has been taken to prevent some of the more spurious concerns about such things as bats and newts obstructing future vital infrastructure projects?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his response and indeed for the tone in which he made his comments, and I was pleased to hear him acknowledge that mistakes had been made on HS2 by the previous government. I think he described the path as not being perfect. Mr. Speaker, I would go as far as saying it has been a shambolic mess. He did strike a sombre note in his remarks. I would ask him perhaps to consider going further once he's had the opportunity to read the full James Stewart report, because I do think an apology on the part of the party opposite for the mess that they left this infrastructure scheme in is undoubtedly warranted. I also thank him for the comments he made about the action that HS2 is taking with